Behind the persona of Pink Floyd, Roger Waters took the conceptual album to a new level with Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, and most notably, The Wall. A master of the theatrical event, he has given the world a unique look at rock and roll. With his first solo album and concert tour, The Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, Roger Waters is finally emerging from the cocoon of anonymity.
We've been largely ignored by the media during our lifetime. The way media have respond to rock and roll bands has a lot to do, I suspect, with the way history will look at them. The history that will get written will be taken from what was written now. And nobody's written about us, partly because we, generally speaking, have refused to cooperate in any way with them.
Dark Side of the Moon entered the music charts in March of '73. It continues to be one of the top-selling albums in rock history.
Dark Side of the Moon was the discovery of a format, really. It's a format within which I've been working ever since. It's a format that I'm comfortable with, you know. I like the idea of an album being about one specific thing and all the songs within it relating back to a central theme or idea.
Police harassment in 75 and the tour of '77 sparked the explosion of Roger Waters' imagination. The Wall, in all its neurotic glory, was built brick by brick.
The Ed Davis, the LAPD, yeah, well, I think they disapproved of rock and roll going into the sports arena. They didn't think it was the right place, so I think they made a conscious decision to put a stop to it. They searched everybody going into the building and arrested hundreds and hundreds of kids every night and tried to make it impossible for the thing to go on. I know I nearly got shot, because I turned up one night and to the same barrier that I'd been to, you know, the other nights, and they wouldn't let me in. So I drove through the barricade, just drove through the barricade like a fool, and there were cars up on the grass and they were all around me with guns and stuff. And that was one bit of the Wall movie, I think, that expressed that quite well, and that stuff outside the gig. I've always maintained a very low profile, and I've obviously done it even more effectively than I had realised. I like to be able to go down to the shops here where I live and never ever be recognised, ever, by anybody.
The US first became aware of Pink Floyd in the late '60s.
I think our first date in America was at Winterland in San Francisco with Big Brother, with Janis and Richie Havens. I remember it well. I was terribly awestruck by the whole thing. There was a scene in London as well. We used to play a year earlier than that. We were doing light shows just in a little church hall, in All Saints Church Hall in Paris Gardens in Notting Hill Gate. In fact, that's where we started to gain some kind of popularity in London. We started doing these. We would play there once a week, and it snowballed incredibly quickly. That was using liquid slides and stuff, which nobody was doing at all.
In the early days, money was scarce, but with a #5 single, Arnold Layne, on the charts, the band began to take their music and themselves more seriously.
Our first year as professional musicians, we sat down and looked at, you know, what we'd made during the year, and we'd made £7 a week each. We'd had a #5 single. I remember doing a radio interview years and years ago, all of us sitting around doing a radio interview, and I listened to it a while back, and we were all unbelievably pompous and sort of about it all. We really kind of, there were things being written about it, you see, that was taking it all very seriously, and it was very convenient for our young egos to believe it all. And we would even regurgitate it. I'd completely forgotten this. If you'd asked me this question without me hearing this interview, I'd have said, no, we were just, but hearing this interview, we took it all very seriously. We thought it was, you know, no, we didn't think of it as rock and roll. It was progressive, maybe progressive rock, or maybe that was a term that developed later.
David Gilmour replaced guitarist Syd Barrett in '68. From that point on, the architects and musicians struggled to achieve the persona that visually became Pink Floyd.
There was always a great battle in the band. That we were divided into the architects and the musicians. Nick Mason and I were relegated to, this inferior position of being the architects, who were kind of looked down upon by Dave and Rick, who were the musicians. And there was a lot of resistance from the musicians to doing anything theatrical at all. So, you could say it was by virtue of the forcefulness of my nature that we went on and did the shows. Certainly in this, it's for shock value, yeah. Well, without any question. Well, it's to create, in terms of theatre, it's to try and to make a shocking moment. If it's not shocking, there's no point in doing it. It's to create that. When you're having a nightmare, everybody's had a nightmare. That awful feeling of, which usually makes you wake up. If it gets bad enough, you wake up, because it's just too frightening for you to go away. And so we've attempted to create something of that feeling at one point.